Hello guys, this is Dr. Maha Abdurrahman and I'll be doing some tutorials today for the bonding and structure for the IGCSE chemistry. And the first question is about the states of matter. Um, which one of these substance is a gas? That's an easy question. I would say the gas has particles are really separated from each other, so I would go for this one. Which substance is a liquid? Now the liquid, it still has some spaces between the particles that allows the liquid to slide over each other, so I would choose that one. Which substance is ionic? Obviously, let me get the photo closer. I'm gonna choose that one. Since you can see here there's a negative and positive ions that are connected together in a lattice structure. So this ionic lattice structure is the typical model for the ionic bond. So I'm gonna go with this. Which substance is a solid metal? Since it's a metal, I want to see the metallic bond, and the metallic bond is really the ions, the positive ions, the layers of positive ions, like that, surrounding by a delocalized electrons, C of delocalized electrons. So this is typically the metallic bond, so I'm gonna choose that one. Now let's move to the second question, which is about the structure of the element over there. Okay. What's the name of this element? This is one of the structures of carbon, which is the graphite. So this is the structure of the graphite. Graphite made up of hexagons of carbon, as you see. Those are hexagons of carbon, and those hexagons are connected as layers, as you see. Each layer is connected with the other layer by intermolecular forces. That's why the layers of graphite can slide over each other, making it a very good lubricant. So I would choose the carbon, because as we see, those are hexagons of carbon atoms of the graphite. Now let's move to the other question. Why does this element conduct electricity? Well, obviously, let me go back to the structure, because each carbon here is connected to 3 other carbons. This left one delocalized electron for each carbon, because as we know, carbon is in group 4. Carbon is in group 4, so it has 4 electrons in the outer shell. And since they're connected with 3 other bonds, so this is connected, that's connected, and the other one is connected. So this will leave one electron, one extra electron delocalized. This extra delocalized electron is the one that will help to connect the electricity. So because it has a delocalized electron, it contains hexagon rings. That's not the reason why it can conduct electricity. There's a weak force between the layers, which is the intermolecular forces that help the layers to slide over each other, as I mentioned before, but this is not the reason why it can conduct electricity. And it does not have an ionic bond, so those 4 choices are not the perfect ones. Only because it has a delocalized electrons, it can conduct electricity. To conduct electricity, you need to have a charge that is free to move. The charge here is the electron. And let's move to another question over there. Okay. This one shows the structure of an alloy. Explain why this alloy is harder than pure metal. Okay, now here, as I see there, I can see here the alloy. The alloy is made up of 2 atoms or two metals, metal X and metal Y. Why this alloy is harder than the pure metal Y? Okay, now since if you look here, you will find that the size of metal X is bigger, way bigger than the size of metal Y. Metal Y is smaller. This difference in the atom sizes will help this structure to be more rigid, more rigid, more strong, since those layers will not be able to slide over each other easily, because this metal X is hindering the particles of metal Y from sliding over each other due to the difference in size between the metal X and metal Y. So it's like blocking those metal Y particles from sliding over each other. Okay, and this is a 2-mark question, so I would say the first mark would be that the atoms of metal Y and metal X, okay, have different sizes. Okay, this hindering the layers, okay, from sliding over each other or from sliding, and gives strength to the structure. So this gives strength to the alloy. Okay, and what's the percentage of atoms in alloys of atom X? How can I calculate the percentage? It's very easy. All what I need to do is count. To find the percentage of atom X, I need to count the question about the alloy. Okay, what's the percentage of the atoms in the alloys are atoms of X? Okay, so I really need to find how many X's is there and how many Y. Since here this is the X, I have 2 of the atom X. So to find the percentage of atom X, it is the amount of atom X over the total atoms times 100. This is like a pure math. So it's 2 over, if you count the full atoms, X plus Y, the total atoms are X plus Y, you will end up by having 27 atoms times 100. It's going to be 7.4% is the amount of the metal X in this alloy. Now, what type of substance is an alloy? Is it a compound, element, or mixture? Obviously, there is no chemical reaction between those two metals. This is just a physical mixing of the two elements or of the two atoms. So that's why it is a mixture. Guys, please always note in the alloy has no chemical bonding. It's just a physical mixing with the percent of 7.4% of atom X and the rest is atom Y. I can form this alloy. Now I'm gonna skip those experiments. I'm gonna cover them later in another tutorial because I want to focus here on the particles and the bonding and structure. Okay, that one is easy, and it's similar to the one that we solved up in the beginning of the tutorial. Which substance is a gas? I would say C, because the particles, as you see, are way further from each other, which is a characteristic of the gases molecules. Now, which substance is a liquid? I would say B, because as you see, the particles are there are still some spaces here between the particles, which is a characteristic of a liquid. So I'm going to choose B. Which substance is an element? Which substance is an element? Element, that means it all has to have the same atoms, same type of atoms. Here obviously I have two different type of atoms. Here I have two different type of atoms. Structure is the only structure that has the same type of atoms, which is the carbon. Obviously this is the diamond structure, so I'm gonna choose A over here. Which substance is made of ions? Obviously D. It's made up of positive and negative ions, so I'm gonna choose D. And this structure, or this figure 2, showing the bonding in substance C. What's the formula of substance C? Obviously you have sulfur element, then there's a double bond to the oxygen, there's a double bond to the other oxygen. How did I know there's a double bond? Because there are 4 electrons here, and we know that each bond is referring to 2 electrons. So since I have 4 electrons, that means there's a double bond over here, there's a double bond over here. So I'm gonna choose the SO2. And back to the other question. Use the correct answer from the box to complete the sentence. When a sulfur atom and an oxygen atom bond to produce C, electrons they're not transferred, because this is not an ionic bond. They're not delocalized, they are shared. I'm choosing shared because this is the property or the characteristic of the covalent bonds. The type of bonds here is covalent because those 2 electrons are shared. 2 electrons from the oxygen, the red ones, and there are 2 electrons shared from the sulfur. So 2 electrons are shared from each. That's why I'm gonna choose the covalent bond is the type of bonding and structure C. Now moving to the last question over here. This question is about salts. It's about sodium chloride. It's added to many types of food. Sodium chloride is produced by reacting sodium and chlorine to produce the sodium chloride. The diagram shows what happens to the atoms of sodium chloride in this reaction. The dot and the cross represents the electrons. Obviously the dot represents the electrons in the sodium and the X represents the electrons in the chlorine, and they want you to describe and explain what happens in the ionic bond. How did I know this is an ionic bond? First of all, this is a reaction between metal and non-metal. The reaction between metal and non-metal usually gives me a salt. The bond here is mostly ionic bond because there is an electron, which is this one here, that has been transferred to the chlorine, as you see. That's why I can see a positive charge over here over the sodium, since it will form a positive ion, and this negative charge over there on the chloride ion shows that there is an extra electron which has been transferred from the sodium. Then the electrostatic attraction between the positive sodium ion and the negative chloride ions is what forms the ionic bond. So all what I need to do simply is putting all what I have said into sentences. This is a 3 marks question. Let me go back. Okay, here we go. So this is a 3 marks question. So make sure that you explain, or during your explanation, you include 3 different informations. I would start by saying that sodium is a metal. It's in group 1, right? So it loses 1 electron, okay, and forms sodium ion. That's the first information I'm gonna include. The second information, that chlorine is a nonmetal. It's in group nonmetal. It's in group 7. That means it has 7 electrons in the outer shell, as you see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it has 7 electrons in the outer shell. It needs to gain 1 extra electron. So it gains 1 electron to have a complete outer shell and forms the chloride ion. So I want to mention here ion. Okay, then the last information I'm gonna include is that the ionic bond, okay, is the electrostatic attraction. So the ionic bond is the electrostatic attraction between the sodium ion, which is the positive ion, and the negative ion. That's the last thing I'm gonna mention. Okay, now moving to B, is there's a lack of iodine can affect the learning abilities of children. One idea is that salt, sodium chloride, should have some iodine added. Iodine consists of simple molecule. What's the property of simple molecule? If I want to draw the iodine, I2, it's composed of 2 atoms of iodine. They are sharing 1 covalent bond, and since they're both the same kind of atom, there are not ions. That means there is no overall charge. That's the one that I'm gonna choose. There is no overall charge. It does not have a high boiling point since this is a simple molecule, and simple molecules do not have a high boiling point. They also don't have a giant covalent structure like the carbon and the diamond, like the diamond and the graphite. So I'm gonna choose that there is no overall question. No overall charge. Which one of that will conclude my tutorial. Which one of the following questions cannot be answered by science alone? I'm gonna choose how much sodium chloride is in food. This one I can easily do an analysis and find it up by science. What harm does lack of iodine do? As well, this we can find it by some clinical experiments. But should iodine be added to salt in food? Should it not? That's a decision that not only science can answer it. Okay, there's are many ethical, many economical issues. So I'm gonna choose this. This question cannot only be answered by science because there are many parameters that involved to answer the question if iodine should be added to salt or no. Is it ethical to do that? Is it economical? So many other aspects are involved into it. Okay, I hope the tutorial was beneficial for you guys. I'm gonna add much more frequent tutorials about the same topic, bonding and structure, in the coming weeks. Stay tuned. Thank you so much.